Eleanor Dumont, born Simone Jules in 1829, probably in France, moved to the United States when she was young. During the gold rush, she settled in the mining camps of the West and worked in saloons as a blackjack dealer. She became one of the first women to make a living from gambling in the Old West, a remarkable figure who helped shape the culture of the card tables. Belle Starr, born Myra Maybelle Shirley Reed Starr, emerged in the Old West as a figure tied to crime, working alongside outlaw gangs. From early on, she showed practical independence, shaped by a restless frontier where farmers, fugitives, and native peoples coexisted. In that setting, she learned to build alliances and move between conflicting laws. Etta Place is a name tied to one of the Old West's most mysterious women. Her origins remain uncertain. Records place her with the Wild Bunch, Butch Cassidy, and the Sundance Kids gang between 1899 and 1901. As Sundance's partner, she was a skilled rider, handled guns, and traveled with the group to South America, taking part in escapes and shifting identities. Josephine Earp, 1860, emerged as a figure of the West. The daughter of immigrants, she arrived in Arizona at the height of the mining boom, worked as a stage performer, and partnered with Wyatt Earp. In Tombstone, she witnessed the tensions between cowboys and lawmen that climaxed in the 1881 gunfight. Later, she shaped the public memory of Wyatt and worked to preserve his version of events. Madam Jenny Rogers, active in the Old West at the end of the 19th century, stood out as a businesswoman in the sex trade. She founded and ran brothels in mining centers and railroad towns, serving miners, cowboys, and travelers. She managed finances, security, and contracts, negotiating with local authorities to keep licenses and expand her business. Laura Bullion, born in 1876 in Texas, entered the Old West scene through her ties to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kids Wild Bunch. One of the few women in the gang, she took part in activities ranging from selling stolen goods to planning escapes, as well as riding armed. Arrested in 1901, she later sought anonymity under false identities. Nellie Bly, born in 1864 in the U.S., was a journalist at the turn of the 19th to the 20th century. She became famous for going undercover in an asylum to expose abuse for the New York World, and for traveling around the world in 72 days in 1889-90. Her work expanded the reach of investigative journalism and opened doors for women in the press, leaving a lasting impact. Mattie Silks, born in 1848 in Missouri, became part of the Old West's entertainment and brothel circuit. She worked as a madam and manager, organizing houses, staff, and clients among travelers and miners. Starting her operation in Denver, she built wealth and influence, expanding into Kansas City, Albuquerque, and San Francisco along the trade routes. Pauline Cushman, an actress who adopted her stage name in the 1860s, became known as a Union spy during the American Civil War. Using her access backstage and in performances for troops, she infiltrated Confederate circles, carried messages and maps, and was captured in 1863, escaping execution. Her intelligence reports supported military operations. Rose Dunn, called Rose of the Wild Bunch, stood out in the Old West. Born in 1878 in Texas County, Texas, she grew close to the Wild Bunch, linked with names like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Known for her steady aim and strong riding, she supported the gang during escapes and moves, living the nomadic and risky life of frontier outlaws. Pearl Hart, born in 1871, gained notoriety in the Old West for robbing a stagecoach in 1899 alongside her partner Joe Boot, something rare for women. Her capture became a top priority for sheriffs and federal agents. Trails led to New Mexico, where she was arrested. Her trial in 1900 drew heavy press coverage and sparked debate about her role in crime. Susan Anderson, a figure of the late West, walked dusty streets on her journeys. She didn't see herself as a heroine, but as a practical agent of change. By joining an outlaw gang, she took on a pact to use selective robberies and support networks to fight against abuses by landowners and local authorities, channeling resources to widows, migrants, and landless workers. Known as Squirrel Tooth Alice, she became a well-known figure in the Old West. She was remembered for her independence and courage. The nickname, according to reports, came from her skill in catching, taming, and training squirrels. She also defended herself fiercely and was outstanding with a gun. Her quick draw and precise aim built her reputation. Annie Oakley, born Phoebe Ann Mosey in Ohio, stood out as a rifle shooter in the American West. Coming from a modest family, she was already hunting to help at home. In 1875, at the age of 15, she faced champion Frank E. Butler in a local contest, and, under strict marksmanship rules, beat him by hitting 25 out of 25 targets, the start of her public career. Known as Calamity Jane, Martha Jane Canary stood out in the Old West as a scout and sharpshooter. Her skill with a gun earned her fame and respect among armed men. She took part in expeditions in the Black Hills and in Deadwood. On several occasions, she served as an improvised nurse, taking part in charity work to help the sick and the needy. Baby Doe Tabor stood out in U.S. history at the end of the 19th century. In 1877, in Leadville, Colorado, she met silver magnate Horace Tabor. Their relationship quickly turned into marriage after his divorce. The union brought her into the local elite. Through wealth, social gatherings, and patronage, she became an influential figure and one of the richest women in Colorado. Emma Lillis Quigley, a figure of the American West, went through a public shift around 1880. Until then, seen as a respectable citizen, she came to be recognized as a prostitute after a photograph circulated. The portrait, reproduced in saloons and local newspapers, made her name known and quickly grew her clientele, changing her place in the urban economy. Ann Bassett, called Queen Anne, was a rancher of the West. Raised on the frontier, she learned to handle cattle and to deal with pasture disputes. When the outlaw gang led by Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid began operating in the region, she didn't back down. She drew close to the group, provided support and knowledge of the land, and took part in actions against rivals. The daughter of Hungarian immigrants, Catherine Harany, known as Big Nose Kate, became famous for her relationship with gunslinger Doc Holliday. They met in Kansas when Kate was working in brothels. Between Dodge City and Arizona, they lived an unstable partnership, marked by mutual support, jealousy crises, long separations, and quick reconciliations. Ellen Watson stood out in the Old West as a settler and landowner in Wyoming. In the 1880s, she registered a plot under the Homestead Act in Johnson County and started a small herd, selling meat and brands. Her role in an economy dominated by cattlemen became notable as she organized fences, brands, and contracts to sustain her business. Olive Oatman, a young woman in 19th century America, was captured with her sister Mary Ann by native people. Marked with ritual face tattoos on her chin, she became part of Mojave society. She learned the language, the codes of conduct, and local crafts, including basket weaving, a central women's practice. Her experience became a symbol of intercultural contact. Around 1892, pioneering photographer William Goldman recorded the women who worked at Sal Shearer's brothel in Reading, Pennsylvania. In studio portraits made in an industrial urban center, one sees faces sometimes melancholic, sometimes reserved, showing the tensions between work, police surveillance, and the social cost of living on the margins in late 19th century America. This photograph of Francisco Pancho Villa was taken in 1912 during the Mexican Revolution. It shows the leader in a mobilization phase in the north, when his forces were active between Chihuahua and Durango to control rail lines, recruit fighters, and secure supplies. Steps that would define the campaigns of the following years. Chief Eagle, also recorded as Atoam Elam Wo Skil M. Salish leader of the Flathead Reservation in Montana, 1906. His leadership took place in the context of federal assimilation policies. As a local authority, he mediated relations with government agents, defended hunting and fishing rights, and maintained ritual practices and the language of his traditional people. A group of cowboys gathers for a meal beside the Chuck Wagon, the cattle drive's mobile kitchen in Sturgis, then Dakota Territory, 1887. Wide-brimmed hats and bandanas shield them from dust. Iron pots boil coffee and beans, while salted meat is served. The scene shows the work routine on the frontier before the Dakotas were divided.